The flight attendant's voice trembled as she stood before him, clutching the passenger list like it was a lifeline. "Sir, I'm afraid you'll have to move to economy class. There's been a mistake with your ticket." Every eye in the first-class cabin turned toward him, the tired man in faded jeans, holding a crumpled boarding pass and a lunchbox decorated with cartoon rockets. His little boy, no more than 6, looked up with sleepy eyes and whispered, "Daddy, did we do something wrong?" If you believe in kindness, dignity, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Moments Story. Stories like this remind us that humanity still matters. The man's name was Ethan Cole, a janitor at a local high school in Montana. His hands were rough, scarred from years of hard work, but it wasn't the kind of labor that broke him, it was life itself. His wife, Sophie, had died 3 years earlier after a battle with leukemia that drained every dollar they had. Ethan had sold their car, worked double shifts, and still couldn't save her. Now, it was just him and his son, Mason, trying to survive. Every morning before dawn, Ethan mopped the echoing halls of the school, the smell of bleach his constant companion. And every evening, he'd help Mason with his homework under the dim light of their small apartment's kitchen bulb. This trip wasn't luxury, it was a promise. Ethan had saved for nearly 2 years to take Mason to California to visit his late mother's grave, where Sophie's ashes were buried near the ocean she'd always dreamed of living by. When Ethan saw an airline promotion for a discounted ticket upgrade, just this once, he used his savings to give Mason a first-class experience. "You deserve to see how it feels to fly among the clouds," he'd said, kissing the top of his son's head. But now, standing in that luxurious cabin surrounded by businessmen sipping champagne, Ethan felt the sting of humiliation crawl up his neck. "Sir," the attendant repeated, trying to remain professional as another passenger complained loudly about the smell of cleaning chemicals near seat 2A. Ethan swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I paid for these seats fair and square." His voice was low, tired, but calm. The attendant hesitated, but the murmurs around them grew. "Just move him to the back," someone said. "He doesn't belong here." Mason tugged his sleeve. "It's okay, Daddy. We can sit in the back." Ethan forced a smile, masking the storm in his chest. "It's okay, bud. We'll still see the clouds." He gathered their things and began walking toward the economy section, head bowed, trying not to let the tears fall. Then, just as he passed the cockpit door, a firm, authoritative voice called out, "Hold on a second." Everyone turned. The pilot, a tall man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, had stepped out. His nameplate read Captain Raymond Harlow, a decorated Air Force veteran turned commercial pilot. His eyes landed on Ethan and froze. For a brief moment, it was as if time itself had stopped. His gaze fell to Ethan's left forearm, where the sleeve had rolled back slightly, revealing a faded tattoo, a trident piercing through a skull. It was the insignia of the U.S. Navy SEALs. The air changed. The passengers fell silent as Captain Harlow approached slowly. "Where did you get that tattoo?" he asked, his voice trembling, almost reverent. Ethan hesitated. "Long time ago," he murmured. "It's just ink now." The captain's jaw tightened. "No. That's not just ink. That's a brotherhood." He turned to the stunned flight attendant. "This man doesn't move. He stays exactly where he is." The attendant blinked, confused. "Captain, but that's an order," Harlow interrupted sharply, his eyes still on Ethan. "Sir, what's your name?" "Ethan Cole," he said softly. Captain Harlow's face went pale. He took a deep breath, like he was seeing a ghost. "Ethan Cole. Afghanistan. Operation Silver Dagger. You saved 6 men from a burning convoy. You were reported missing after that." Ethan nodded faintly. "I left the service after that mission. Lost a lot of good men that day. I didn't want to remember." The captain's eyes glistened. "I was one of those men." The entire cabin gasped. Mason looked up at his father, confusion mixing with pride. Ethan blinked in disbelief. "Ray? Lieutenant Harlow?" The captain smiled through tears. "I never thought I'd see you again. You pulled me out of that wreckage, Cole. I owe my life to you." The silence in the cabin turned to stunned awe. The same passengers who had judged Ethan moments ago now stared at him with shame and respect. The captain clapped a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. This man is an American hero. If anyone here has a problem with him sitting in first class, they can take my seat in the cockpit instead. No one spoke. The same businessman who had complained earlier shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Ethan's gaze. The flight attendant whispered an apology. Ethan tried to refuse. "It's fine, Captain. I don't want to make a scene." But Captain Harlow shook his head. "Not a chance. You've done enough for this country. You sit right here, where you belong." As they settled back into their seats, the energy in the cabin had completely changed. Mason's eyes sparkled with pride as he whispered, "Daddy, you were a hero?" Ethan smiled softly. "I was just doing my job, buddy." During the flight, Captain Harlow personally brought them snacks and blankets, insisting on checking in every hour. Mason was treated like royalty, invited to see the cockpit, given a tiny pilot's pin, and told stories about bravery and brotherhood. But behind Ethan's quiet smiles, there was still a heaviness in his heart. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, the captain made an announcement over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we disembark, I want to recognize a man who reminds us what true honor looks like. Mr. Ethan Cole, Navy SEAL veteran, saved lives when most would have lost theirs. Let's show him the respect he deserves." Applause erupted. Some passengers even stood, clapping with genuine emotion. Ethan, usually a man of few words, simply nodded in gratitude. He lifted Mason into his arms, whispering, "This one's for your mom." Outside the gate, Captain Harlow caught up to them. "Listen, Ethan. You said you work as a janitor?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah. Just trying to keep things steady for my boy." The captain exhaled. "I run a veterans outreach program here in LA. We help former servicemen find stable jobs, housing, counseling. You've done enough scrubbing floors. You call me next week, all right? We'll get you set up." Ethan hesitated, his eyes glassy. "You don't have to do that." Harlow smiled. "No, but I want to. Because men like you remind me why I'm still proud to wear these wings." A week later, Ethan and Mason stood on a California beach. The wind whipped through Mason's hair as they placed flowers by Sophie's memorial stone. The ocean shimmered gold under the morning sun. Ethan knelt, tracing her name with trembling fingers. "We made it, Soph," he whispered. "He's getting big. You'd be proud." Mason hugged him tightly. "I miss her, Daddy." "I know, buddy. But she's here. She's always here." Behind them, a familiar voice called out, "Thought I'd find you here." Captain Harlow stood a few feet away, holding a folder. "I've got good news," he said, handing it over. Inside was an offer letter, Facilities Supervisor, Los Angeles Veterans Center. Full benefits. Housing support. Ethan's eyes welled up. "You didn't have to, I told you, Cole. You saved my life. The least I can do is help you live yours." That day, as the sun rose higher, Ethan realized something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The world had finally stopped taking from him. For once, it was giving back. Months later, Ethan was working at the Veterans Center, helping others like him rebuild their lives. Mason thrived in school, proudly telling everyone his dad cleaned up the world. The little boy didn't mean floors, he meant hearts. One afternoon, Ethan stood outside the center, watching the sunset. A group of young vets saluted him as they passed. He smiled, a quiet strength in his eyes. Life had come full circle, from a janitor scrubbing floors to a man rebuilding futures.